Hello and welcome to News9 Plus show on the world's first news and current affairs OTT platform, News9 Plus. Today was Kargil Vijay Diwas. The Kargil war fought between May and July of 1999 officially concluded 25 years ago on this very day. There were wreath-laying ceremonies that were held at war memorials across the country. The main one was organized at the Kargil War Memorial in Dras. The Prime Minister, Chief of Defence Staff General Anil Chauhan, Indian Army Chief General Upendra Dwivedi and other senior military officials along with Kargil veterans and family members of the fallen soldiers paid tributes to the bravehearts who sacrificed their life for the country. The conflict began when Pakistani soldiers dressed up as terrorists infiltrated the Indian side of the line of control and occupied strategic heights in the region. Indian Armed Forces launched Operation Vijay to evict the intruders and reclaim the occupied territories. This involved relentless, intense fighting in difficult and treacherous terrain. It was the extraordinary bravery and resilience of the Indian soldiers that ensured that India was free of the intruders. Now, to talk about this and what happened 25 years ago and what are the lessons that we have learned from this war, joining us live on this broadcast are Major General Jagatbir Singh, Distinguished Fellow of the USI and editor of the Salute magazine, Wing Commander Praful Bakshi, former Chief Spokesperson, Ministry of Defence, and Squadron Leader Dipti Kala, Defence Analyst and ex-IAF Officer. Mr. Singh, if I can begin with you, it's a very emotional and a very powerful day. We heard the Prime Minister actually at the Kargil War Memorial. Not only did he give a very powerful speech, he paid his respects, met the former Indian Army Chief VP Malik as well. How would you see 25 years down the line, this war, and in particular, what are the lessons that India immediately learned from this?
I thank you very much for calling me on the show. It's indeed an honor and a rare privilege for me to be speaking to all of you on this. And before I go any further, I'd like to salute all those 527 brave hearts of ours who fell in the line of duty during the Kargil conflict. And also, I must pay a tribute to their families for braving all the odds over the past 25 years so bravely. It is indeed, as they say, a matter of honor to die for your country, fighting for your country. But it also leaves an impossible and almost heavy burden of grief on the families who have been left behind. They were young children, their young widows, their mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters. And I really pay my profound, respects to all the family members of these brave hearts. As also, I must say that it was something remarkable in the manner in which you rightly brought out. There were Pakistani soldiers and not jihadis who had infiltrated in this area. Now, if you look back over history, Pakistan has, waged war against India 4 occasions. The first was in 1947-48 when they came into Kashmir, and we're all well aware of that. That time they came in at Lashkar. The next time was they took advantage of India's weakness after the 62 war, and they first initiated conflict in 1965 in the run of Kutch, thereafter in the area of the valley of Gibraltar, and finally they came into Akhnur. They were beaten back at that time also. Then you had the issue of 1971, where they launched absolute genocide as a result of Op Searchlight in East Pakistan at that time, presently Bangladesh, and Indian troops went in there. And then you had the proxy war going on. And now in 1999, what was sad was that this was done behind our backs, because just few months earlier, the Prime Minister had visited Lahore and a very famous bus yatra,
Right.
and Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee and Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif were talking peace at that time. They wanted peace in the subcontinent, and what came out was that Pakistani regulars had infiltrated on areas which were not occupied in the Kargil heights, which only came to light in the first week of May. Ultimately, we fought, the Indian Army fought, with certain terms of restriction. Now, what were the options before the army that time? The army could have contained this intrusion here and gone into another lightly held or unheld place and, captured it. But we chose to respect the line of control. And there's
Yes.
another thing that I'd like to bring out right here. That time, they were also sort of, both countries were not sure, and the world was not sure how it would play out, this conflict, because both countries just a year earlier in 1998 had tested nuclear devices. So there was what you can call this conflict was the first conflict fought with a nuclear overhang. And in between,
True.
you know that right from late 80s, there was a proxy war going on in Jammu and Kashmir. So there was a large number of activities carrying on in Jammu and Kashmir, and Pakistan regulars were infiltrating terrorists.
Major General Singh, I'll come to that. That's a very significant point that you're raising about the lessons and how, in which kind of an environment this war was actually fought. But Squadron Leader Kala, if I can come to you. Again, we are paying respects to the brave hearts in Kargil. It's a very important occasion in India's history. But coming to our Pakistan policy, do you think that we even today continue to learn from what happened in Kargil and thereafter? And especially in the last 5 years, the kind of policy that the Modi government has had with Pakistan. Do you think this was the right approach to completely isolate, ignore Pakistan's rhetoric and not give them the kind of importance and weightage that we used to earlier?
Yes, Aditya. First of all, I would also like to pay tribute to the entire country, all the soldiers who were martyred. Thank you for having me here today. Aditya, this was absolutely a right decision by the Modi government. Why? Because there goes the saying that you can make a mistake once, but if you make it more, it becomes a foolishness. So, as Sir has already told us how Pakistan has been behaving in every situation. They've been only taking the advantage of situations, and they've been trying to mimic the country, the Indian country. And every time, though we won the war in 1999, but then we know, the soldiers know, and the army knows that how it was won. The situation was not in our favor, yet our brave hearts, gave their life, and 527 life martyred is not a small number, right? So
Yeah.
after having after that Pulwama attack, and then we doing the surgical strike, and if you look back before the government, Modi government, and after the Modi government, you would see that there is a drastic decrease in the bombing activities or other activities. Whenever even this Pulwama attack happened, you would see that it was also the advantage of a situation taken, because the road was open for the civil for their betterment. But then it was taken in the wrong advantage, and then we have seen what happened during the Pulwama. So absolutely yes, we are on the right track, because we just cannot trust Pakistan for whatever strategies, and knowing the current situation of Pakistan, I think being the one of the strongest developing economy as we are coming in the world, we 100% cannot take any chance in any which ways from all the kinds of enemies that we have all around. So I think it's a good and great decision, and we should keep on going in that direction. I've been to Kargil, I've been to Dras, I've been to the war memorial. So I've seen how when you go there, that is when you realize that how bad the situation was and how our brave hearts have handled it. And now we cannot give any chance to the enemy to take advantage of the situation, and we should stand very strong to save our country from the enemies.
That's right. In fact, I've been to Kargil twice in 16 and 17, and I know the kind of treacherous terrain that there is. I actually went to the Tiger Hill and of course saw the Toluling as well. But Major General Singh, coming to the larger point, especially in the last few years, we of course speak about Kargil, but there is a looming challenge of a two-front war. Is India prepared for a two-front war challenge? And I ask this because, we have shifted our focus, rightly so perhaps, towards China. the real emerging threat over the last 4 years, in particular after Galwan happened. But with the recent spate of terror attacks that have happened in Jammu division, do you think there could be some kind of a China angle as well? Because I've been hearing murmurs about the Chinese intelligence and the Pakistani intelligence working in cohorts together in the region. And we have seen the kind of redeployment that has happened from Jammu towards Ladakh in the last 3 years. Could this be as a result of Chinese and Pakistani proxies working in that area?
Yeah, this is a very interesting conversation you brought up. And I've always talked, you cannot separate now Pakistan and China. I've always said this is a collusive threat. This is a joint threat. So even if we fight one of the adversaries, the other one is backing it in multiple ways, like you brought out. So a joint collusive threat is possible. Two-front war is there. Our armies and our services are prepared for that. But today it is more complex than what you make up, what you said. Frankly saying, in this region, Eastern Ladakh is where the collusivity between Pakistan and China is at its maximum. Because that is the end where they are closest as far as physical proximity is concerned. But collusivity can take place in multiple other manners also. So you brought out there's intelligence sharing, there's equipment being transferred, there's assistance being given in various military means as far as training goes, as far as ammunition goes, as far as logistics goes, satellite communications. There are multiple things. You've seen the amount China has invested in Pakistan as far as the CPEC is concerned. Now, if they put in so much money going through the area from Gilgit-Baltistan to the area of Pakistan-occupied Kashmir down to Gwadar, it's far greater. They need to defend those assets at some point. So this collusivity is there, and this will only increase as times to come. Fortunately for us, the physical link-up has not been possible because of our occupation of the Siachen Glacier. So if this goes away, there was a lot of talk earlier, of withdrawal from the parts of the Siachen Glacier, converting that into a zone of peace. But this is one area which has prevented a sort of physical link-up directly in our. Now you've talked of lessons. One of the first lessons that came out was our intelligence failure. Second lesson, what came out very hard and clear, is that you need to have developed your own military capabilities. Every country needs to have certain amount of hard power that you need to develop. And hard power doesn't just come from your military strength. The hard power comes from your military capability, from your doctrine, from your training, from the vintage of your equipment, and from the resolve in a country to demonstrate that when required. So that is something that has come up next. And the other thing that is now being given a lot of emphasis, which I felt is something that was, we suffered at times in Kargil, was from the Atmanirbhar. That means your own defense industry should be built up to such a level that you don't have to depend upon outsiders during a time of war for your immediate requirements, because at that time they can increase the cost of, say, a round of ammunition. And when you're firing thousands of rounds of ammunition, that multiplies into, they can delay the supplies. Then what do you do? So, you have to have certain amount of Atmanirbhar Bharat. You have to have your own defense industry in place. And for that, I've always maintained that it has to be a partnership between your public and private enterprises. Plus, you have to focus on the research part of it, and you also have to have the user, which are the services involved, and the government, which makes the policy to facilitate such a thing. So, if you have these 5 players in place, I'm sure we go further.
Wing Commander Praful Bakshi joining us on the broadcast. Sir, thank you very much for joining us. We've been discussing about the lessons that we learned from Kargil. You've been a very top-notch, defense voice in the country. How do you see the lessons that we have learned, in particularly, when it comes to Atmanirbhar Bharat, that slogan that the Prime Minister has given, modernization of defense technology, and of course, the air power that is crucial now. We have not just for logistics, but, the kind of air power that we have currently, particularly in Ladakh.
as you had mentioned and as my co-panelists are mentioning, the self-sufficiency indigenization program and Atmanirbharta is the first requirement of any security threat to be faced. First requirement. Why we had to start and thinking of Atmanirbharta? Because our doctrines 1947 onwards never even mentioned that. When Rand Corporation brought it out in 1995, that security doctrine was not even mentioned anywhere in India's Indian scheme of things. Army, Navy, Air Force of India from 1947 to 1995 had fought without any doctrine. It means there's total confusion as to whether when the war starts, should you go, should you use air power, should you not? Everybody was telephoning everybody. This even happened very close to Kargil. You were 27 days late in putting in air power. You were still hobnobbing whether you should bring in air or should not bring air. That your readiness was not there. You had to rush to get the laser-guided bombs. On the 25th day, you had to bring in the laser-guided bombs. Thanks to the Air Commodore Ahluwalia, later on Air Marshal of Gwalior, you had to bring it out straight away, and then your thing started. Because of this problem, you lost 550 odd people. You wouldn't have lost so many had you been ready. Now, question is, why Atmanirbharta was required? Because our basic industry is weak. We don't make tank grade metal. We don't make any engine. We don't make an honest rifle even till today. Let me tell you. So let us not fool each other by you're saying that we'll do everything. And when you are going to face China, you are going to face China with 200 squadron China has, 20 squadron Pakistan has, and we are brought down to 30 instead of 42. Now you can imagine yourself, where are we? Not making any aircraft, only LC has just started coming. And for this, the present government is doing its level best to bring the situation up. Yes, it is coming up, no doubt. The infrastructure development on the border from Ladakh to Arunachal, 308 kilometers. At one time, 8-10 years back, your soldiers had to walk all the way. Chinese tanks come on the train. There are 8 railway stations from in the entire length, number of ordnance depots, ammunition depots, which China has created right on the border. And we have our homework to be done for now we'll have to wait for next
Very
5 to
important
6
points.
years.
Very important points, Wing Commander Praful Bakshi. In fact, just a couple of months back, I was in Eastern Ladakh. I was in Siachen, in fact, and then went all across to Eastern Ladakh, and I was amazed because in the last 15 years, I've seen the kind of difficulties that the soldiers have faced, especially with logistics, etc. And the kind of roads that have been built, the infrastructure development is amazing. I saw it firsthand. But, one of the last questions on the show to you, sir, do you think that India is prepared for a two-front war challenge? You said that the government is doing a lot to transform, to bring in a paradigm shift. But are we prepared? Or do you think that theaterization of the commands needs to be done, a lot more that needs to be done, a doctrine needs to be set by the government?
There are 2 sets of work to be done. First thing is your mental preparedness, your doctrines to be written. You have to decide about the joint command systems. You have to decide about your deployment of your Air Force, whether the Air Force will be broken up into piecemeal or it will be done jointly. Army and our Air Force have to see eye to eye on this. They are only paying lip service. This has to be done. Until you do this, I'm afraid you are there will be a lot remaining to be done. But at the moment, the way we are placed against China, we are placed very well, because in that theater where we have lost 48,000 square kilometers of land because kind courtesy our previous government, we gave them on a silver platter, there China is going to face immense problem. Why? Because now they've found out that our soldiers are much more capable of handling high altitude war as Chinese are concerned. And the amount of force which we have got in that area, Aksai-Chin and that area, is sufficient not only to hold the Chinese back, but to push them back. because China has to distribute its forces all over with the condition in South China Sea and number of things hotting up. China will never take risk of putting all the forces here. But we should not depend on this aspect. We have to continue working hard. Let the diplomacy work also. We have to buy time. I'm telling you, 7 to 8 years are required at least to buy time. We can face China. There is no doubt about it. We can face Pakistan. We will not let them join up. They will not join up until and unless they create one full, arc and join up with south of Karakoram. They start and occupy the whole area, which they will not be able to do. That is where Daulat Beg Oldi had taken so much of importance, where we are now controlling it. We are controlling all the area around it. So China will not take this risk of attempting a two-front war with India.
Fair enough. Yeah.
It will be a very uphill task for us, and a lot of sacrifices would have to be done. So it is better for both the sides not to think of war at the moment.
Absolutely. Very important advice there by Wing Commander Praful Bakshi. But Major General Singh, if I can come to you for your last comment. How important is this synchronization, the jointness that we speak about? The CDS was speaking recently at the Kargil Honours event of News9 Live, where he said that we are moving beyond jointness. Do you feel that there's a lot more that needs to be implemented down on ground? There is, of course, a lot of verbal ideas that have been put out, but implementation, we seem to be a little too late on that.
One of the fallouts of the Kargil Review Committee was the creation of the CDS.
Absolutely.
And General Bipin Rawat was the first CDS. Now you can see how many years later, based on the recommendations of the Subramaniam Committee, who's incidentally the father of our current External Affairs Minister, a very respected voice as far as India's defense security needs are concerned and requirements. So, this was his recommendation at that time. But, just a couple of quick points. One of the lessons that comes out is that you cannot be complacent anyway. You have to keep reviewing where the adversary can take advantage of certain weaknesses and quickly plug those weaknesses. We've seen lately that there have been so-called weaknesses which have emerged in Jammu, and there have been numerous terror attacks and we've lost 12 soldiers there. So, this is one thing. You saw what happened in Kargil, you saw what happened in Galwan. We were quick to react over there. The second issue, which came to the fore, also touched in the Kargil Review Committee, was the problem of intelligence. There's no doubt that this needs to be continually improved. Wing Commander Bakshi talked of, national security and national security policy, national security. Yes, there has been a great deal of improvement on that, but there's far more that needs to be done. The main issue you've touched on is jointness and integration. Now, integration and jointness has to be done. The CDS spoke of theaterization. That is the next step forward. But also, I'd like to say that apart from the services, which is the Army, Navy, Air Force, there are many other people who are also players in this. How do they fit into this puzzle is also something that needs to be studied. So there's a great amount of central paramilitary forces located in this area. They're also providing intelligence. They're also providing troops on ground. Where do they fit into the matrix of this theaterization, of this integration? We need to look beyond the services also. And there's a point that you have, yes, we need to do it quicker, but the main thing is that when we do it, we don't need to get it wrong. So you need to be deliberate in getting about it. There were issues with the Air Force viewpoint, there are issues with the Army viewpoint, and there are issues with everybody. The three services have their own viewpoint on this. But let me tell you, Kargil demonstrated that we were able to carry out, to evict the intruder in the most difficult and inhospitable terrains by, relentless infantry assaults going head-on into the enemy, against the enemy. And it was also three other operations. You talk of Operation Vijay always, but also Operation Safed Sagar with the Air Force carried out, and Operation which the Navy carried out. So this is what you call jointness. But now, as you said, we have to go on to integration, and as we move forward, We have to go on to upgrading our technology. We have to keep pace with China. So I mean,
Fair enough.
that's
Fair enough.
what
Fair
I'd
enough.
like to
I'm
say.
afraid I'm out of time, but very important and significant points by all three panelists out there that we need to move beyond jointness towards integration. We cannot be complacent, and certainly this is a day, an important day, not just to remember and salute our brave hearts who sacrificed their life in Kargil, but perhaps to learn the lessons so that we can avoid those casualties in future and perhaps remember the legacy of those soldiers as well. Thank you very much to all three panelists for joining us on the News 9 Plus show today.